Last night, in the nightcap to the third Monday night doubleheader of the season, and I have a feeling there will be more, Cardinals beat the Cowboys 38-10. Dallas has given up 218 points through 6 games. That's the most in the NFL since 1970. And now it's starting. Even though they're in first place in the worst division in football, maybe the worst division we've ever seen in football, Unnamed Cowboys. According to Jane Slater, the embedded Cowboys reporter employed by the league, partially employed by the Cowboys themselves, let's call it what it is. She put this on Twitter today. Do we have the tweet? Because I don't have the language of it in front of me, but I can summarize while we get up. Oh, there it is. Cowboys players initially bought into keeping things internal. Now as they sit 2-4, the discontent is leaking out. On the coaching staff, quote, totally unprepared. They don't teach. They don't have any sense of adjusting on the fly. Another, quote, they just aren't good at their jobs, end quote. Now, here's the question in Dallas. Is it the players not very good? Is it the coaches not getting much out of the players? And usually this sets up, Charean, conflict between coach, who says the players stink, and GM, who says players are fine, you stink. In Dallas, the dynamic's different because GM is owner. And in a roundabout way, and I'm not going to suggest that the Cowboys gave the nod to this report from the media company they partially own. I'm not suggesting they planted this report with the media company they partially own. All I'm saying is this. In the grand scheme of things, it actually helps Jerry and Stephen Jones for this to be out there because it shines the negative light on the coaching staff and it takes some of the heat off of them for rounding up a bunch of players who just aren't good enough.
Mike, this is when you really miss the way it used to be, right? I went to the game, and normally you would go down and you would get Jerry Jones, and I guarantee you he would have said something that made news. And those questions would have come up. How much confidence do you have in this coaching staff? That would have been one of the first questions because they don't look prepared. I don't care what you say, whether they are or aren't, whether the offseason affected them or not, whatever. This does not look like a prepared football team. And besides giving up all those points, they're also their turnover ratio is the highest or lowest or however you want to phrase it. They're minus 12, and it's the worst since the merger at this point in the season. They're just doing some bad things that bad football teams do, whether it's coaching, whether it's the players, whatever. And you can point to Dak all you want, but look, he's only missed 1 game. And so you can't spin all this and say, well, it's the absence of Dak. And I know they have a ton of other injuries, especially on the offensive line. I get that. This defense is awful. And there's so many awful things about this team. And you do wonder, is it coaching? Is it personnel? Is it both? This is a bad football team right now, and they're still in first place in the NFC East, which tells you all you want to know about that division.
I have a feeling it's both, and I have a feeling it's going to continue. And Chris Sims and I talked about this today. I think it's going to be Philadelphia or Washington that ends up winning this division. Washington, if they go with Alex Smith. Otherwise, Philadelphia has shown us the past couple of years. They'll start slowly. They'll figure it out. They get some guys healthy, or they don't, as what happened last year. It was Carson Wentz and a bunch of no-names that found a way to close from 5-7 to 9-7 and win the division. But the Cowboys are definitely moving in the wrong direction, even though, Charean, they're in first place. I don't think it's going to last unless they start figuring things out very quickly.
And what I found interesting last night, listen to Mike McCarthy, he said, I'm still figuring out my team. Really? At this point in the season? I mean, I realize you didn't have an off-season program, but how are you still figuring out your team and what they do well? You should know this by now. I mean, you had 6 weeks of practice and you've had 6 games. How do you not know what your team is good at and what they're capable of? I found that very curious last night listening to him say that.
Yeah, and look, the problem is it's meshing with some of the criticisms of McCarthy's time in Green Bay, the things that trickled out after he left, those same issues now rearing their ugly head in Dallas, and we'll see whether or not the Cowboys can turn it around.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.